A very, very good evening. A warm welcome to Dan Really Likes Wine, presented by Pick n Pay, where I'm feeling good. I'm feeling positive. I'm feeling lekker mensen. And that is because one of my favorite people in South Africa is joining me on the show for the very first time, and probably not a space where you thought you might see him. In fact, that is why on a rather warm evening, I'm wearing as close to one of his signature jerseys as I have in my rather modest collection. The man in question is Mr. Schalk Bezuidenhout, and in just a moment, we'll be finding out what on earth he's doing making wine. Wine that is unsurprisingly called Feeling Good, Feeling Positive. It's a pinotage, and it's got Schalk's signature written all over it. Now, that's part of the reason why I'm very excited today. I'm also excited because we're heading off to a small, lesser-known wine-producing nation in the second half of the show, and we are going to be joining a guy called Andy and a guy called Clint, who run a newish business called Elephant's Corner Wines in South Carolina. They're taking South African wine into the United States and having a huge amount of success with it, and in particular with the wines of Mont Rochelle, the wines of Camberley, and the wines of the Kleine Wijn Koöp. So Dustin, Mark, and Wynand will be joining us from those three wineries. And in fact, Wynand will be joining us first up in just a second, because he is the man who is making Schalk's wine for it. Although Schalk assures me it's in North Carolina, not South Carolina. My apologies. My Canadian geography has always been poor. So it's North Carolina. We'll be joining them a little later. Wynand is helping Schalk to make the wine. Schalk's doing most of the work, but Wynand is doing a little. Also very excited if you are watching this in South Africa, and I know we're very fortunate to have people around the world tuning in, but if you're watching in South Africa or indeed across the African continent, season 13 of the Dan Nicol Show kicks off 8 o'clock tonight on Super Sport Variety 1, that's channel 206. Some great guests tonight, including Ruud Gullit, the Dutch football legend, Cameron van der Berg, the Olympic gold medalist, Glubin Boyer, the actress, and Dean Elgar, our new South African Proteas Test captain, and a cameo appearance from JP Germany as well. So that's all coming up later on the Dan Nicol Show at 8 o'clock. But Dan Really Likes Wine, presented by Pick n Pay, has got an equally star-studded lineup. So let's go straight to our first two guests. One of them has been on the show before. He is Faf du Plessis' personal wine and fashion consultant, Wynand Grobler, and alongside him, one of South Africa's not just great comedians, but great actors. He's very underrated in that serious space. Please welcome not just Wynand, but Schalk Bezuidenhout. Welcome, guys. Good evening, and thanks for joining us. Fine. What do you make of the jumper, Schalk? It's not quite your level, but it's the best I could do.
Listen, actually, just hold on, Dan, because if you want to see the ultimate jersey, okay, I'm going to blow your mind.
He's got a walk-in closet for his jerseys.
It's me on a jersey. Did you ever think?
That is glorious. Where, at which branch of Louis Vuitton do I buy one of these, Schalk Bezuidenhout?
That's a one-of-a-kind custom make. I mean, that it's like sewn, you know. Like the girl I met her afterwards, shame, her fingers look like knick-knacks. Will never be the same again. But yeah, it was the last jersey she ever made.
Well, look, you do inspire such devotion in your growing army of fans, and it's an army that I think is about to grow even further, because you have diversified from doing comedy, making films, and growing fabulous moustaches to now creating some wine. Give us a little bit of the Schalky Bez backstory, the interest in wine, and what led you to deciding that making your wine is something you wanted to do.
Well, I actually love the story of how it happened, because it was like meant to be. It really happened almost by accident. So Wynand's wife, Anja, who also works for the Kleine Wijn, it's like family business, they sent me a case of wine, and I didn't know the Kleine Wijn made wine. I thought they were just an online shop. So I phoned Anja to say, listen, where are these wine farms? Because these 6 wines you sent me, they all have different names, and it is the best wine I've ever had. And I've never done this, where I actually just phoned someone up to say, listen, you've got a fan for life. Your wine is the best wine I've ever had, especially the first 11, which is Faf's wine. And she said, no, I said, where are these wine farms? Because I've never heard of like the first 11. She said, no, that's Faf's wine. I also didn't know who Faf was. But yeah, I'm just not a big sport person. I do know now. He's the guy who makes wine. delicious wine. And yeah, she told me all these things, and I said, who makes this wine? Where's these wine farms? And she said, we just give them different names. It's all under like the Kleine Wijn or Infinity Wines. And I said to her, yeah, look at, I've always wanted my own wine. I've just never known, how do you approach, like as someone who wants to, collaborate with someone, how do you approach a massive wine brand? How do you approach like Warwick or Beyerskloof, whatever? And she just said, Wynand will phone you in 3 hours. And then Wynand phoned me. It was like 5 p.m. And within an hour's conversation, Wynand was like, yo, man, look, it's really not complicated. I make the wine. If you like it, we stock it. And, we design a label. And there you go. We put it out there. I was like, okay, it's easy as that. And literally, I think it was a month later, we had designed the label. Wynand had sent me wine through Postnet. Okay. By this stage, Wynand and I had never even met yet. In fact, we only met a month ago. All over the phone, WhatsApp, whatever. He sent me bottles of wine through Postnet. I would send voice notes. And I'm not a wine. I always tell people I'm a wine lover, not a wine knower. So, I couldn't I didn't even have the terminology to tell him what I wanted. I was just like, I want like a serious red wine. It needs to be serious. Even though I'm a comedian, it needs to be a serious red wine, right? Now, this poor man, I don't know how he actually could sift through all the info I gave him, but eventually it was literally by the second bottle he sent. I said, this is it. This is the one. This is the pinotage I want. And now we're on batch 3 already, and it's even better than the first 2 batches.
So Dan, I wish all that, yeah.
You said, carry on, you wish?
No, I said, I wish all of that was true. I mean, Schalk's definitely the toughest client, or the most meticulous client we've ever worked with, Schalk. So we he knows exactly what he wants, and we actually preferred it that way. So we did a couple of rounds of samples, and he knows what he likes. Don't let him fool you. So he knew exactly what he wanted, and he described it quite well. So he definitely drinks a lot of wine. He doesn't know a lot of wine, but he definitely drinks a lot of wine. No, he knew exactly what he wanted, and I just went and looked for basically, he said, no, try that, and I went and tasted the stuff, and then I knew what he liked, if I haven't tried it before, and we went from there. So it was quite easy actually to help the man out.
What were your thoughts, Wynand, when you got that first message via Anya that this wild-haired comedian decided he wanted to be a winemaker? Did it take you by surprise? Were you quite excited? What was the response?
Yeah. So very much so. We obviously love dealing with interesting people, and Schalk's definitely one of them. So we loved I love the opportunity. And we obviously jumped at it, and it's been a great partnership since then. So Schalk's got a great reach, and people follow him. His supporters are very loyal, and they trusted him in the first wine. So I don't know if he ever said it's us making the wine, so it must have been him that sold all of it. I'm actually seeing in the background here. Here's the first label. So this is the first one we did from. We decided to change the label around basically every vintage, and do limited releases of it. And but it's just such a great opportunity. Why not jump at it, Dan?
So just between us, very quickly, Wynand, just strictly between you and me, just the two of us, was he one of those really difficult Kardashian-like celebrity clients?
Look, the fame's definitely gone to his head. I mean, have you seen his hair lately? No, I'm only kidding. What a guy. We had a great harvest day a month or so ago, and Schalk came, and I think he spent more time with the kids and joking with them than he did with us. He definitely drank his fair share of wine. I counted the bottles afterwards. So no, I'm only kidding. Obviously, it was only a pleasure to deal with. So as I said, he knows what he wants, and we don't mind that at all. So I think, I hope we put in bottle what he wanted. So I think we did.
Well, let's talk about what you like, Schalk. The wine that you've drunk. When did you first start drinking wine? And I'm guessing kind of 11, 12. And then how's the palate developed? What sort of wine has caught your attention to lead you into wanting to make this particular style?
Well, I grew up in Kempton Park, Dan, and the rule in Kempton Park is there's only one wyn, and that's Brandewyn. And I love Brandewyn as well. But then when I went to Cape Town, I think I started drinking wine because it was actually just the cheaper option as a student, like I remember we always drank Harvest Crackling. Now, there was like always a challenge at the beginning of the year when we were in res that you had to finish like a 2-liter Crackling, and the last man left standing after that, I don't know, won a prize. I don't think there ever was a prize, but everyone the next day just forgot that there was a prize to begin with. But obviously, just over the years, I also really like wine because for me, it's like the best sort of chill in the evening while watching TV kind of drink, like when I'm not on tour and stuff, I really like just to be home, especially in the winter, make a fire, spend some time with friends and family. And like wine for me is just that perfect. I like beer as well, but beer makes me very quickly like heavy and bloated and tired. I like spirits just go straight to my head immediately. Shots is out for me. So red wine I just eventually found is like the alcohol, like different alcohol mixes differently with some people. Like some people can't drink white wine at all. I'm one of those people. I can't do white wine. It just gives me a moose headache. Some people, they say like, oh, my word, keep Jessica away from tequila. So everyone, like, I guess, finds their alcohol that really mixes well with them. And very early on, I realized it was red wine. The problem with red wine is it becomes expensive because the more you drink of it, the more you can actually taste what a good quality red wine is. So eventually, like a Duiswijn just doesn't cut it. So the more you drink, the more up you have to go in the price range of wines because your palate does develop. So, and I always drink on stage when I'm doing shows. Like I had a show on Tuesday, I have a show tonight. I always have a glass of red wine. And it's lovely just to like take a sip every now and then in the show. And the type of red wine I like is like I described earlier, like a serious kind of red wine. Maybe that is like not the worst description, but like a pinotage, for me, it's like, it's a bit more heavy. It's something that I think a wine drinker appreciates. Like my parents, for example, they don't drink wine, and they weren't very impressed with the feeling good, feeling positive pinotage when I took it there the first day. But my parents are my biggest supporters, so they still order a case. 2 cases, in fact. Every time a new batch comes out, they order 2 cases. They don't drink a single bottle. They invite me over one day for lunch. I have to sign all of them, and then they take it with to a braai. And then they use it to brag. Oh, did you know Schalkie has his own wine? So it's like for me a wine that I think like a wine drinker will really appreciate. And I'm not mad about like a very sweet wine. I think the first sample that Wynand sent me had like a bit of sweetness to it, and the first thing I said to him was like, I don't like the sweetness; it's too sweet, So I'm not like mad about rosé. So like dark, full-bodied. Another description that I gave Wynand that he managed to figure out, I said it needs to be next to the fire in the bushveld in the winter kind of red wine, and he interpreted it perfectly. It is that red wine.
I think that's a brilliant description, and I think that you've definitely got a future as a wine connoisseur and a wine writer, because you talk about wine in the way, Schalk, that people can identify with because you're passionate about it, and I think you know a little bit more than you let on about wine because the palate is clearly there. Before I ask you to introduce us a little more intimately to your wine, Wynand, just to go back to you in terms of this wine, you've given us a pinotage, a wine that, as we all know, has had a bit of a mixed history, but I think is moving back into a generally more appreciated, more loved space. What kind of led you to making this particular wine? Obviously, there was some guidance from Schalk, but the process to getting to this finished product.
Yeah, definitely, Dan. So we, as he explained, I gave quite a colourful explanation of what he wanted, and like pinotage having that massive tannin that like it's just sort of in its genes, literally. It has a bigger body, natural bigger tannin, and what we were sort of trying to avoid in like making this one was getting a dry tannin, getting something that's dried out, like just like not. It's never going to get better, although it has this big tannin. So I wanted something that was supple, a slight juiciness, although he doesn't like the sweetness maybe. So I think the first samples I maybe added a bit too much sin. So just as a softening out component, just to round off those tannins. So I worked on that, like a little bit of sin, a little bit less sin, so like sort of brings out that bright red fruit too. So we definitely went more in a burgundy like style instead of Bordeaux like pinotage, where it's over oaked, over extracted, too heavy. I went for something slightly lighter that, as you said, like your everyday wine drinker will actually like. So yeah, something. So that was the thought process behind the blending of the pinotage. So we wanted something that has enough body and structure and texture, but also then will be able to like sort of be a slightly easier drinking one. So and that's why we went back to the roots of pinotage, the Pinot Noir side, instead of going heavy Bordeaux like over extracted oak kind of style. So I hope you guys picked that up in the wine too. But that was the idea behind the final blending.
Yeah, very much so. It speaks to a style of pinotage that personally I prefer. The bigger, heavier, slightly chewier version is one that hasn't always struck a chord with me. And here you've got that lightness, which is great, but without losing structure. And there is still a definite mouthful to the wine, almost that little bit of crunch. Mr. Bezuidenhout, if you're presenting this at the Global Forum of Comedian Winemakers, how are you introducing this wine to the floor once you've had a generous sip?
How I would introduce this wine to the floor is, hey, look, man, said there's grapes in and alcohol. What more do you want? That's also what I told Wynand at the beginning. Like, I don't want to make something that's like very pretentious. That's why it says here on the back, actually, with subtle hints of grapes and alcohol. The feeling good, feeling positive pinotage will leave you with exactly that feeling. It's in the name. And when I was starting to drink red wine as a student, starting to appreciate red wine more, I never once drank out of a wine glass. Actually, even in our old flat, the first time I started drinking out of wine glasses was either at a restaurant or when we moved into this flat because it came furnished. So there was wine glasses. But I never drank out of a red wine. Like as a student, I always had this old coffee mug that my dad, it was like his mug when he was in grade 1 or something, that I would always at house parties and stuff, I would drink red wine out of this old little coffee mug. And for me, everyone should drink red wine the way you drink it. It's like you must do what you like. If you want to drink it out of a freaking little trophy that you won because you came third in a 5-kilometer fun run, then you must drink it out of that, like this thing of like wine is supposed to be like this and that. Like, I think the way we can make it like unpretentious, that's what I wanted to do. And that's also why I said to Wynand, I wanted to be like 120 Rand red wine, because I feel like 120 Rand when I'm in the shops, 120 Rand for me, it's not like too cheap, but it's not like completely out of my price range. Like for me, that's like 120 Rand wine is like lekker. I'm treating myself tonight, but it's still affordable. And also with the name, feeling good, feeling positive, I guess I could have Googled what is feeling good, feeling positive in French. But let me actually do that right now. Feeling good, feeling positive in...
On est positif, le monde va bien.
Se sentir bien, sentir positif. We could have called it that. Se sentir bien, sentir positif. But we ended up going with feeling good, feeling positive.
I tell you the good thing. Just a little later in the show, we're going to be chatting to the guys from North Carolina. I think feeling good, feeling positive is definitely easier to pronounce than a French name, and certainly much easier than the 17-syllable Afrikaans words that the Kleine Wijn Koöp specialize in when making labels while drunk at 3 o'clock in the morning. So I think this is also, sorry, now that I see myself like holding it like this is the Kempton Park way of holding wine. We never hold it by the stem. We always hold it like this. Just ready for a fight, just in case you need to get going. It's important.
Yeah, it's quicker to put down.
What about the wine future, Schalk? Because clearly you've thrown yourself into this project, and yes, it's a bit of fun, but as with so much of what you do, and I think of your craft as both a comedian and actor, you're a lot more hardworking and dedicated than people might imagine because of your happy-go-lucky demeanor. You're a proper professional, and Wynand has made it clear you've thrown yourself into this as well. Is this something you see being part of the Schalk Bezuidenhout story for years to come?
Yeah, I mean, look, comedy, stand-up comedy and acting is definitely my passion, and that's the thing I will, spend most of my time on. But I would love for the feeling good, feeling positive pinotage to eventually reach a point where it can, where we don't have to almost convince people anymore, like, hey, listen, try it. This is actually a good wine. Don't let it put you off that a comedian with crazy hair and a snore is making it. I was actually cringing a bit when Wynand was saying, yeah, at the harvest day, Schalk was just there with the kids the whole time. Can't say that, Wynand, not with this snore. But anyway, so I was like, Wynand, don't say that. Anyway, so, I would like for it to just carry on and for everyone to try it, and people are so surprised, which I love. I did a show on Tuesday night. And tonight we actually have some of the wine at the show. And this girl came to me and she's like, Schalk, I bought the wine because I just thought, why not? And it was good. It was good. I was like, yo, what did you think? We're going to give you like stove pain mixed with 95 unleaded. What did you think? Of course it's good. The winemaker's name is Wynand. He literally has the word wine in his name. There's no way it was not going to be good. But, I think people... The obvious thing that people think, obviously, and let's be honest, whenever someone like a comedian or an actor or even a singer, sometimes sportsman, make a wine, I think a lot of people think it's a gimmick. And, and that's why people must taste it to realize that the quicker people realize I actually have nothing to do with the wine except that it's called Feeling Good, Feeling Positive, and has my name on it, the better. It's actually made by a professional who's very good at winemaking.
Look, it's a fair assessment of the challenge because every celebrity who lends their name to wine is going to have exactly the same response. But I think your wine's got a very good chance of breaking through that because Wynand's produced something that not only delivers on your philosophy, but also makes for a very Moorish glass of pinotage and a style that I think has got real popularity at the moment. So, Schalk, thank you for giving us some wine. Just before we say goodbye to you, very quickly, in a nutshell, beyond the world of wine, what's on the Schalk Bezuidenhout horizon? World tours, movies, marrying Kardashians? What have you got planned?
Well, all of that, and but before we get to marrying the Kardashians, all of them. I actually want to marry all of them, like a what do you call it, polygamist? But is it? Yeah. Anyway, my new show is called Feeling Good, Feeling Positive. Actually, no, just Feeling Good, and I'm doing the second show ever of it tonight. The first one was on Tuesday, and I'm starting to tour it around the country. I'm doing a Musa show in Wellington this Sunday, 11th of April, like a big outside show at a beautiful wedding venue there. And it's some of my favorite material that I've written, was all written in the lockdown. And as soon as we were allowed to do shows again at small capacities in September last year, I started doing these tiny new material nights of the show to test this material. And from the first night that I was testing this new material for the first time, I knew it was going to be a hit. So if you see Feeling Good, the show happening close to you, come watch. Hopefully we'll have the Feeling Good, Feeling Positive pinotage at most of those shows. Wine and comedy, they actually go very well together.
And in particular, the wine of Schalk Bezuidenhout and the comedy thereof. Schalk, thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you at one of your shows soon, having you back on the Dan Nichols show again soon, and sitting down for a few glasses of wine in due course as well. But thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Okay, thank you. Dankie, Wynie.
So there we go. Schalk Bezuidenhout loves red wine, hates white wine. So look out for the Feeling Bad, Feeling Negative Chenin Blanc coming out sometime soon. All right, Schalk leaves us. Wynand does not, because he is staying on for the second half of tonight's show, which is being watched by assorted people. Anne Ferreira with a big smiley face and some tears of laughter, enjoying the evening. Thank you, Anne. I see somebody with a suspiciously similar profile picture, Peter Ferreira, there as well. Lekker mijn mensen, feeling good. Bubbles Ferreira, the man behind the great Graham Beck Cup Classique. And James Chevalier, Camberley Too Delicious, watching over on YouTube. Well, we're going to be tasting some at Camberley in just a moment, because Camberley, together with Mont Rochelle, now join the Kleine Wijn Koöp, along with Elephant's Corner, which is running a fabulous business over in North Carolina, getting South African wine to that American market. So we've already got Wynand here. Let's say very warm welcome to Dustin from Mont Rochelle, to Mark from Camberley, and to Clint and Andy, who join us from Elephant's Corner Wine in North Carolina. Guys, a very warm welcome. Lovely to have you joining us, and welcome. And I'm genuinely excited about this because it showcases South African wine traveling around the world, and that's because of a pair of gentlemen over in North Carolina. Andy, Clint, lovely to have you here. And Andy, I know you in particular do watch the show a great deal, and we love the support. Give us a little bit of the backstory, how you guys came together, how the idea came together, and how we now find South African wine making its way across the ocean.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Thanks for having us. Yeah, so I'll make it short. Obviously, I grew up in South Africa, in Pietermaritzburg, actually, so KZN boy. So I actually have a very similar wine background to Schalk by the sounds of it, because I grew up drinking beer. I mean, KZN, hardly anyone drinks wine, right? And that's actually where I met Wynand. Wynand came down to KZN to do a post-matric you used to have in those days at Maritzburg College, and couldn't speak a word of English. And I taught him English, actually, when he came to KZN. No, I'm just joking. But yeah, long story short, I went off to Stellenbosch University, and obviously the cheapest thing to drink at Stellenbosch was wine, and it got the job done. It wasn't very good wine that we were drinking, but yeah, it got the job done. Shortly after that, I moved over to the States, and then, you know, talking 12 years down the line, I got to meet Andy through Wynand. They were working together in the wine business. I was running I am running a safari business. So Andy and I used to collaborate on marketing events. We would do wine dinners, and Andy would talk wine, I would talk travel in Africa. And they really went, you know, very, very well. Andy and I became good mates here over in North Carolina. Obviously, Wynand and I have stayed good mates. And then got a random call, you know, beginning of COVID from another good buddy of mine from Stellenbosch days, Mark Nell from Camberley. And he basically said, look, we're looking for a distributor of our wine in the States, and do you know of anybody? So I was like, well, funnily enough, I do, you know. And I said, we can do it. So if I can get the right guy to come on board with me, which I was referencing Andy, then for sure we will do it. Got hold of Andy. Andy was over the moon excited, and Andy's prerequisite was like, as long as we can bring in Wynand's wines, let's go for it, you know. And that's basically how we got started. And then, of course, Mont Rochelle and Dustin came on board, and yeah, but that's it in a nutshell, Dan. Yeah.
Andy, give us a sense of the mechanics involved, because my knowledge of the American market is it's not the easiest place to always get wine into from around the world. One thing for you and Clint to sit down over a few drinks and say, oh, this sounds like a fantastic idea, let's bring in some wine. How difficult was it translating that grand idea into actually making it work?
Actually, you know, if you didn't have experience in it, it would be quite daunting, I think. But from the outset, you know, I've been involved in wine business and shipping and importing wine into the US for some time. To be fair, it's not that difficult when you know, I guess, like everything. But it's just a matter of getting all the wines approved, export certificates and so on approved, and then working with a shipping agent to find the best deal, basically, that works for us and for our wineries. To ship the wine in. And in the case of us in North Carolina, we're about central in terms of the state, and our wine comes into Norfolk, Virginia, and then it's trucked to us from there. It's right now the holdups are just in port with delays at Cape Town, for example. So we're kind of trying to preempt what we might need going forward into the summertime. As we speak, and I guess on that note, you know, we are now putting together our second container just after 2 months of being in business over here.
Clint, in terms of wine and the market, I'm completely objective and know that South African wine is the best wine in the entire world ever. But you've also got some rather good wine made in America and a market that is able to access it, that will know it. What's the challenge of getting people to discover, to enjoy, to pay some money for South African wine? And is there a USP? Is there something about a wine that helps it to stand out from the American crowd?
Yeah, Dan, and I think a lot of this goes back to, that's why I had to get the right guy on board to do this, because I've watched Andy do this and really get the concept of South African wines across. Because to be honest, a lot of people don't even know that South Africa produces wine, So what Andy's goal was to get good wine over at a good price, and so that we could make it affordable. Because when you've got a South African wine sitting on a shelf next to a Californian wine, people need to be able to justify why should they buy that South African wine. So that's been our whole kind of business model as we got started, was to make it affordable, even though it is an imported wine.
Yeah, it's very much a hand sell product. You have to be in front of the customers. You have to create the business in order to get more business. And our wines all tell fantastic stories, from Mont Rochelle's connections, obviously, with Sir Richard Branson, to Mark and his dad, Johnny, with the Prohibition line, for example, to Wynand's, all very Afrikaans-style labels, which is so cool. And everything tells a great story. And if you know those stories and you can portray those to the customer, the end user, then that's where you get the business. And it's just about building relationships,
Yeah, I think, and what Andy does really well, obviously, is getting in people's faces and really explaining the wines. And I've done a couple of deliveries to restaurants and that, when Andy's been out doing tastings, and people love the way he talks about the wines. He's clearly passionate about South African wines. So, like you said, it's very much a hand sell, and he gets out and gets all of that done.
People pay me a lot of money, Dan.
I've seen your passion come through very strongly, Andy, in the comments as you watch the show unfold, and it's
Sure.
terrific to have such a wonderful ambassador who's telling those stories which include the story of Mont Rochelle. So let's kick down to Dustin and get going with the first of our three wines that find their way into North Carolina. The Mont Rochelle story, Dustin, just to give people a little bit of a background, including the gentleman you work with rather closely, a bloke called Richard, who I presume is on the phone to you a couple of times a day.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. Thank you for having me on the show, and it's great to be with everyone. I think just before I start and go through the history of Mont Rochelle, just one thing that I've been listening to that we've been talking about is the common thread of South African wine people looking after South African wine people. With Clint being good mates with Wynand, and that whole common connection there. So when Elephant's Corner was busy setting up their company, Wynand got hold of me and mentioned that they were looking for a Chardonnay. So, so Wynand got hold of me, and obviously now Mont Rochelle's involved with Elephant's Corner. So it's just awesome to see during, the past tough year and a half or so, wine people looking after wine people, which is great. So, yeah, just cheers to that. And just a little bit about Mont Rochelle, obviously. So Mont Rochelle is situated in the Franche wine region. Obviously, previously the French Huguenots settled originally, so in 1688. And Mont Rochelle's history stretches back basically to when they arrived, when Jacques de Villiers signed the title deeds for our property. And then obviously there's been a lot that's happened since then. And more recently being Virgin Limited Edition that acquired the property in July of 2014. So we've been associated with the Virgin Limited Edition group since then. So Virgin Limited Edition is basically all of Richard Branson's private properties around the world. So there are a few of us that are in the group, and we're basically the only winery. So we've got the winery, and then we've got a 26 hotel bedroom. 26 rooms in our hotel, and then we've got the manor house that's aligned to the property as well, and then obviously our two restaurants, Country Kitchen, which is our more al fresco, not quite fine dining, but more homey style of restaurant, and then Miko Restaurant, which is the hotel. That's basically just a small short background of Mont Rochelle.
How closely involved are you in the broader empire? Because it is a huge empire, and there's certainly prestige being part of it. Is it a very well connected web of businesses?
Yes, so no, for sure. We work. I work for well, our company is Virgin Limited Edition, so we've got our executive team that's looking over all of the properties that are within the portfolio. But yes, Virgin Limited Edition falls under the greater Virgin brand. So there is a lot of assistance with regards, if you're meaning sports more specifically for the wines, where there might be a foot in the door somewhere with regards to contacts at certain areas that we are able to use. But we do speak a general broader connected message. Yes.
But it's a beautiful property. I've stayed there a number of times and always had a thoroughly good time, going all the way back to Miko's time, the Rwandan of many years ago. I haven't been for a while, so I'm definitely due a visit, but I shall visit virtually through the medium of wine. Your Chardonnay, which is now finding fans across North Carolina. Give us some background to it and introduce us to the wine.
Yeah, so obviously it's the Chardonnay, Mont Rochelle Chardonnay 2019 vintage. What we're trying to achieve with the Mont Rochelle Chardonnay is, not a heavily extracted style of Chardonnay. So we don't want a massive amount of oak in a massively textured wine. So it's usually partially barrel fermented and partially stainless steel fermented. This specific vintage, half of it was in stainless steel, half was it in barrique, in older barriques. And then with regards to not making it too heavy or too cloying, we don't let it go through 100% malolactic or secondary fermentation. It's only partial secondary fermentation just to keep a bit of that freshness coming through. So this is from two specific vineyards in Franschhoek. Our specific focus as far as the Mont Rochelle brand goes is specifically on Franschhoek wine of origin wines. So I don't go out to the greater Western Cape and source grapes. I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with doing that. Everyone's got their own specific style that they're trying to achieve. But we basically focus solely on Franschhoek. So it's two specific vineyards out of Franschhoek. The clone is 95B, which is quite a peachy sort of stone fruit style of clone. And like I said, what I enjoy about the wine is that it's not heavily oaked. It's more approachable from that perspective. You've got fruit, you've got oak, and you've got a nice creamy texture as well as the acidity that pulls through on the wine.
The art of balance, which defines any great wine. Let's head briefly back to America. Andy, when I think American Chardonnay, I think back to the bad old days of wine you could really eat. It was half wood. Has that style changed a lot? And how is this particular style received in America and in North Carolina in particular?
Well, this style of Chardonnay is received very well. It's very just as Dustin was saying, it's kind of it's in the middle of not too oaky and not too light, so it's got some lovely mineral notes to it, some really nice citrus. I think it surprises a lot of people when they taste it. In fact, I was just tasting this wine yesterday with a new customer who loved it. They like the fact it's not too buttery, it's not too bold, not too big, and so on. So this was a restaurant customer, and for them, it's the perfect medium, I guess, between. It's going to please everyone. If you're a Chardonnay drinker, you still recognize it as Chardonnay, and if you're not a Chardonnay drinker, I think you'd still drink it. So it's a prized possession on our portfolio. We absolutely love this wine, and we're very proud to have it.
Clint, does this tick your Chardonnay box?
Dan, like I said, I'm very similar to Schalk in my likes of wine. I'm more of a red wine guy, but I particularly like this Chardonnay. It's perfect for a braai, standing around a braai, afternoon braai on a hot day, or what we call here in the States now a cooker, but I still call it a braai. But yeah, I really enjoy this Chardonnay.
All right, that's your final warning for using non-South African terms on this show, Clint. You'll be off the show if you do it again.
No problem.
Dustin, final word from you, just beyond the Chardonnay, the Mont Rochelle space. Really nice range of wine. You very generously sent me up a fair bit of it, which I'll be working through over the next few weeks. It's safe to say that you're in a good and exciting space at the moment at Mont Rochelle from a wine perspective.
Yes, Dan, very, very exciting times. we've got a lot of plans that we're busy with. One of which is basically replanting our whole farm. So we've done a lot of research on what sort of clones and cultivars and those sort of things suit all of our specific blocks. So yeah, there's going to be a huge potential forward as far as the complexity of the wines moving forward. And as I mentioned before, our focus is going to remain on Franschhoek. With regards to us being part of the Virgin Limited Edition group, when people visit us, we want people to experience what we do best. So we want them to be tasting, grapes that we have grown in our own soils, wines that we've made in our own cellar, and we want to bring that and portray that forward through to everyone that's going to be enjoying our wines. Yeah, so there's a lot of positivity.
Very, very proudly Franschhoek wine, handmade by Dustin and Richard Branson, hand in hand together in the cellar. Dustin, don't go away just yet. We want to get one last line for you at the back end of the show. But let's leave Mont Rochelle and head over to Lake Camberley, or at least that's what it looked like last time I saw social media. Mark Nell, good evening, a warm welcome. I saw the floods, I saw the burst pipe. How are things? Are you recovering? Are you surviving your recent disaster?
Yeah, thanks, Dan. We are. This is probably the only bit of real estate within the entire farm that hasn't been washed away. But yeah, I mean, it was obviously a bit of a shock. It came out of nowhere. It was one of those where, I mean, it was just a freak. We had a pipe burst, a Teerwaarder's Kloof pipe, which, I mean, it must be hundreds of kilometers long, and it burst literally in the worst place it could have. So we had about 2.5 million liters of water flow through here in about 2 to 3 hours. And I mean, yeah, a lot of the wine was damaged. This was kind of what we're looking at now with a lot of our wines. So yeah, it's been an interesting week, but the guys are, I mean, they've been, the sort of operation cleanup's been going as well as it could be, and it's I guess it could have been a lot worse, so you kind of have to focus on the positive.
Oh, well, you're doing a good job of that. I'm not sure I'd be quite so upbeat. Just how much damage did it do when you say the wine was damaged? Is it simply the labeling, or have you actually lost the wine itself?
No, we were lucky. I mean, so most of the damage was to the labels. I mean, again, here's the sparkling Shiraz. I mean, this is the sort of, I mean, that's kind of what we're looking at, just across thousands of bottles. So the wine itself has been okay, by and large. There were 1 or 2 barrels that took quite a knock, just in terms of water and that. So we're probably going to have to write that wine off. But yeah, most of the damage was to labels, and that's obviously something we can recover. So we're lucky in that regard, I guess.
It's a common trait to people in the wine industry. You're a pragmatic and optimistic and resilient lot, and you're going to need those quantities as you get back on your feet. But it looks like you're well on the way, which is great, and you do have some wonderful wine to keep you going. We're talking to the Elephant's Corner team who are getting their wine done in America. What was the attraction of joining up with Elephant's Corner, of sending your wine off to this particular market?
So, I mean, as Clint said, we were at varsity together, and we were great mates. We lived together, so we've obviously always kept in touch. I mean, Camberley, the first vintage was in '96. Although I hadn't really been involved until fairly recently. And when I did get involved, Clint and I were just chatting, and it literally was a case of me saying, I mean, as you mentioned earlier, saying, if you do know of any decent wine distributors, please put me in touch, because we were in a transition phase whereby our previous distributor in the States had sold his business. So yeah, and Clint said, well, I mean, it's literally as he told it. It was a case of him saying, well, strangely enough, I know this guy, and that guy happens to be a machine in the form of Andy. So. I mean, it's early days. We're preparing our second shipment now. The first one went off, and we thought it would take them ages to sell it. And it's, I mean, as I say, Andy's just a machine. He's got through it really, really quickly.
Andy, did it take much convincing from Clint to persuade you that his mate from varsity, which is never the greatest recommendation, was going to be a sensible choice of someone to supply you with wine?
In truth, yes. No, not at all. Not at all. I know how close knit everyone is in South Africa and the winemaking industry, and I don't know. It happened so quick, didn't it, mate? I mean, it just, everything fell into place. Not just obviously with Viney as well, but with Clint, and then bringing Dustin in, the connections and the relationships all came into play very quickly. I will say, Dan, that I did have to pull a few more strings to get Wynand's wine into the country. There's, a bit risky labels and things, but we managed to pull it off in the end.
Yeah, I think the biggest convincing part was, like anything, I've got another business that I started from the ground up, and this was obviously a startup, and to get Andy to leave a job where he's earning a salary and he's kind of risk free to come and do a startup where there's a lot of uncertainty. I think that was the convincing part, and he bought into the idea, which was great.
Yeah, but I love South African wine. I mean, it's my passion, and we're the fortunate ones to have the wine here and to be able to sell it, to be quite honest with you.
All right, well, let's have a look at that wine in detail. I have a bottle of something called the Philosopher's Stone, Mr. Nell. Where does the name come from?
So the name was, it stems back to when I was at university, and I think Clint may have been there this particular day, but we just, the thinking was that we needed a pizza wine. Something that didn't, nobody took too seriously and that was affordable. And the intention was always for it to be a wine that you bought and literally took out that night to a braai or go and have a pizza with it. We had a big blend, and or at least my old man did. He's the winemaker, and he's actually just crept in here, so he might jump on here. But yeah, I mean, it was just a case of blending. We had a whole lot of the winemakers around, and a few hours down the line, there was this monstrous party on the go. Cigars were out, and guys kind of got, they kind of finalized what they thought was a really good blend. And then it was a case of what are we going to call this wine? And at that stage, there was a Van Morrison song playing, and I'm talking cigars. I mean, guys dancing on tables. It was everything you'd expect a university party to be. And in the Van Morrison song, he made mention of the Philosopher's Stone. And one of the winemakers, I forget who it was, said, "Hey, you've got to call it that," which we thought was a great idea. And so we went with it. Only to find out a few weeks later that there was a Harry Potter, this book called Harry Potter, and this character, and there was Philosopher's Stone in that. So yeah, that was, we thought there might be a few legalities coming our way, but it turned out being, I mean, it was a great marketing. It was just a stroke of luck on the marketing side, I guess. It worked really well for us. We've had people arrive here saying, "Look, we don't drink red wine, but we love Harry Potter, so we're here for the Harry Potter wine." So yeah, that was the intention with the wine. Was we always wanted it to be something that was really easy to drink. It actually came out a lot better than I think we ever really thought it would. The idea is for it to kind of, over the years, we've tried to retain that reasonable price point. But I'm actually going to bring my old man, and he's been in the tasting room all afternoon, so this could be interesting. But he'll get a little bit more technical with you.
All right. Well, while Mr. Nell Senior does that, just a correction that you've seriously got to work on your marketing, Mark, because your real story needs to be that the success of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone was based on the popularity of the Camberley Philosopher's Stone wine. So just get that story the right way around, and you'll be flying. Let's meet the other half of the Nell duo here, and get some thoughts on the wine. Looks more like a slightly older brother than a dad, really. Mr. Nell, welcome to the show. Lovely to have you on, and nice to see a smile on the face after all you guys have been.
I hope I'm not photobombing here. My kids always tell me I'm photobombing, so I hope I'm not.
No, you're doing a fabulous job. Tell us about the wine. It's been described, written off as a pizza wine by Mark. I think there's a little bit more to it than that. Give us an introduction to it and what makes it so special.
Sort of doing these, talking to you now, so I feel a little bit like Elizabeth Taylor's seventh husband. I know what to do, but I don't know how to make it interesting. This wine is look, it's a blend. We do a Cabernet Franc, and I wanted to make a wine that was a Cabernet Franc based wine as opposed to 100% Cabernet Franc, which is not well understood in this country at the time that I started to make this wine. So I took it as the base wine at about 40-45%, and then I put some Cab Sav and some Merlot together with it, and that's the creation that we had. It's our wines. We've got our port is called Elixir, and so on. So we've gone that route as a result of that party and Van Morrison. Mike Sperling from Diageo was here at that party, and he said to me, "You know bugger all about wine. Why don't you actually just call it along the lines of alchemy?" So it stuck, and we wrote down a couple of hundred names to do with alchemy, and we tossed out quite a few sort of. We tossed out inappropriate ones, but yeah, that's how it is. And look, the wines, it's an interesting wine, and it's well priced and it's well liked, I think, and probably the most popular wine here. But sorry, I go on a bit. So yeah,
no, not at all, John. I think what you've got in this wine, which suggests that you're a bit of a visionary, is a precursor to what's become particularly trendy at the moment, which is both an understanding from the market and a reveling from the winemaking perspective of making Cabernet Franc, because it's one of South Africa's not so much up and coming, but up and arrived wines at the moment, and it seems you got a sense of that before everybody else did.
I think we did, Dan. I like the varietal very much, but to introduce it to a market 100% Cabernet Franc at once, I think you slowly catch the monkey. There were people doing Cabernet Franc really well in South Africa. There are probably 20 or 30 people making it well now, but I wanted to introduce it slowly and just get people to understand what Cabernet Franc does to a wine. And we're now making 100% as well. So we've introduced the 100% Cabernet Franc. Is it a popular seller? It's people who like Cabernet Franc buy it, but it's not the most popular chocolate in the box, no.
Look, it's a big favourite of mine, and I do think that space is growing. But for those who are still finding their way with Cabernet Franc, this is an excellent first step. Clint, Andy, this particular wine in an American space?
Yeah, well, to give you an idea, we sold out in 4 weeks. It's that popular, you know, so it's not something to underestimate. The American public, as us, love it. It's for me, it's a very old world style, new world wine. And the notes, the flavors, the profile of the wine, the polish finish, it's going to please anyone. And we're excited to receive some more of it soon.
It is lovely. Let's go back to our earlier guest as we wrap up the three of our estates of sending wine over to Elephant's Corner, and back to Fluff's fashion guru, Wynand. Welcome back into the show. You've been a big part of this whole operation. Is there some reflected pride in seeing not just the fact that your wine is going to America, but that the team over at Elephant's Corner has hit the ground running and are doing so successfully?
Yeah, definitely. Like Dan, I'm very close to both of the guys over there, so we'll definitely visit them. I can't wait to get over there again and see the market. Just introduce people to South African wines. It's great to see sort of non-traditional regions. Everyone goes to the East Coast, sells their wine there. Nobody really goes to this bottom belt. Hopefully now a lot more do. And when we went there a couple of years ago, say a couple of years, I don't know, 7 or 8 or 9 years ago, it literally there was already the Canon Corps and the KFC, the FMCs, the Ken Foresters, and those guys were on the shelves, the Rustem Vredes, the big boys. So it's nice to see, as the years went on, we actually saw the other wineries getting that, people appreciating the quality. So it feels like the states are really appreciating our quality versus price ratios. It's just great to go there, and people being so passionate about the wines. People are super passionate about their wines. There's a lot of knowledge in their market. You get to a wine shop and the people are well versed in wines from all over the world. So they do, and then that said, they actually appreciate the wines that come from South Africa. So it is, it's, for me, it's very exciting, and I can't wait to support these guys for the next 10 years, in their market. It's massive for us. It means the world to us, to be there, and to be with a really good team that sell the daylights out of our wines. We love it. So,
honest question for you from a marketing perspective. Your T-shirt reflects the names of one of your wines, the 100 You've got the Criterier. We're going to taste in a moment. There's a very strong, very proudly Afrikaans feel to your marketing, to your image, to the names of the wine. Does that speak to something exotic for you in American market, or is it a bit of a challenge?
Yeah, so initially we definitely assumed that it might be a challenge where, like it's tough to pronounce some of the names. I mean, 100 is not the easiest name to pronounce. But that said, Marquis de Rascal, like some sort of Spanish or French pronunciation of, Jerry Chambertin, that's also tough to pronounce to some people. And I even got to get it wrong. So initially we thought it was going to be a barrier of entry, like in a way, but it's been so well received, and it's not. And people accept that sort of, like authenticity in a way, where it's like, that's part of the culture. That's what it is. That's their name, and people they run with it. It's more about what's in the bottle, I suppose, at the end of the day. So if we make it, if everything makes sense, like it makes sense to the customer too. So the wines, yes, initially, yes, but we haven't had that resistance at all. Thank goodness. So we can also survive.
Andy, Clint, the reception to this wine purely from a marketing, from a visual perspective, from a, hey man, how do you say that?
Well, I think it's a great thing, Dan, because it creates the curiosity, and people want to know what it means. They want to know how to say it correctly. And then, of course, Andy does a great job of talking about things, so it creates a story. And that's the basis of how he's selling our wines, so it gives him something to really start to talk about, and people love it. People love the stories.
Yeah, and the stories are the key, to have, like, for example, this wine right here, Klipkos, to have that written on the label, and then to be able to explain to the customer what that means, the relationship to the vineyard and so on, why Wynand in this case chose that name. It means so much. People love the story, and then when they taste the wine, of course, it sells them. So very often I do tastings with perhaps, let's say, all of Wynand's portfolio in one hit, and the response is phenomenal. There's not a single wine they don't like, and that's unusual. As Wynand was relating to, the market's very tough here, as it is anywhere, and so to have the ability to walk into these places and to present in the way that we do as a sole South African distributor. We don't deal in anything else. This is it. And to show our passion, and to show the passion, or to translate the passion of the winemaker as well. Then that's what enables us to be successful, I think.
And even his labels, Dan, I mean, as you can see, Wynand's labels are amazing, and that creates a story in itself, So, the Criterier, it's a story to tell, and it's awesome, and especially when you can hear it from Wynand and then kind of to bring it across here. I was just with Wynand, 2.5 weeks ago, with some of my travel business clients, and sat down in a tasting with him, and just when he explains the story of the label and the wine, and then to bring that across here and be able to tell that same story, people eat it up.
Yeah, all of these wines, we are so lucky to have them here from all three wineries we're working with. We're going to be looking at a couple of others to add in as well soon, to expand our portfolio a little bit more. But we've got stellar, world-class wine here, and I don't know why people would drink anything other than South African wine, to be quite honest, at this level.
You are a wise man, Andy, but I've always said that. Let's have a taste as we look to wrap up of one of the wines. Our final wine for this evening, it comes from the Kleine Wijn Koöp, which is Wynand and Pfaff du Plessis, the fashion model who hits the occasional cover drive. This is the Criterier. It's a great label to start with, and I know there's a cool story behind it, but I'll let you tell me the story, if you will, Wynand, to introduce us first to the label, and then to the blend and the wine we're drinking.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. This is the Criterier, the 2019 vintage. It's actually, the label's inspired every year by a different creature, so that's why it's called the Criterier. So the label changes every year as the blend changes. So you can see 2019 we put the Springbok on there. Hence, since we won the World Cup, we had to sort of put a little bit of Springbok head on there. Very proud of that. And a lot of this one actually goes to England. So we were thinking about putting the score on the back label as well. But no, we never did it. So the Criterier is one of those wines that's sort of a Kleine Wijn icon, where because of this changing label, it's just, we have a massive following all over the world. People we're sending cases all over there because they actually collect these wines. It's not grown on the Philosopher's Stone. It's actually grown on Table Mountain sandstone, a little bit of granite. We do a lot of whole bunch ferments on it. It's a wine that's sort of like we would like that. We'd like it to speak to sort of every sort of level of wine drinker, whether it's my serious, winemaker friend from France who comes over and he likes something really spicy, sort of intriguing, slightly meaty character, with that underlying red fruit, from that you get from the Cinsault, for instance, or like also my mates from Bloem coming, that they actually want to come drink some brandy on the Cape, and I can pour this to them, and they will actually find it interesting and easy to drink. So it's that wine that we make that sort of like touches all the bases. It has enough, like, again, structure and quality, like great qualities to intrigue everybody, whether you're serious or not. Yeah, it's a nice, it's a blend of Cinsault, Mourvedre, and a bit of Shiraz. So those three varietals are known to go well together. I usually, when I do the blending for this wine, I sort of go for the more juicier side of the barrels. So the more showy barrels tends to go into the Créative. So it's a wine that, like, if you want to like entertain your mates and show off a little bit, like it is a wine that does show off, although it's nothing flashy, not in your face. You can still like sit with a glass and like really appreciate like the spice and the elegance and the like white peppery. And as I said, it has that coriander sort of meatiness to it that it gets from the Mourvedre. So it's just like a very nice wine to have, but it's also the one to keep for the special occasion if you have somebody special coming over.
It is indeed. It takes a lot of boxes. I love the dark brooding Mourvedre that comes in there and casts a shadow of the very best sort all over it. We've got some high-profile people watching. We heard from Peter Ferreira a little earlier. Great Sherwood in London. Lekker tasting, boys. Another of our fantastic global wine ambassadors. Before we wrap things up, one last one for you very quickly, Wynand. One other wine that you feel from your selection that's doing something interesting, showing nicely, people should make an extra effort to go out and find?
We big time into Pinot Noir from like great regions, for instance, Walker Bay, and like I definitely think that's the way to go for South African Pinot. And then also the Heimbeer Cab, that's a Stellenbosch Cabernet that we also make. So those, I'm going to go for two, Dan, not just the one, but those are the two that I'd say go look for. Like they're really, like sort of, they're showing really well at this stage. The new releases will be coming out soon. Those ones, unfortunately, do go quickly. We don't have a lot of access to great grapes there, so we sort of, the vineyards that we have are very limited. So the new vintages will be coming out soon too. But the current vintages are like really drinking well now, and with some place to age.
No, I've got some of that Cabernet Sauvignon. I suspect it might be disappearing this weekend. Back quickly to Camberley and the brothers Nell, Mark and John. We've tried the Philosopher's Stone. Something else at the moment that you'd highly recommend people make an extra effort to go and find?
Dan, Johnny's gone walkabouts again, and we differ, but I'll get him involved here. I'm really enjoying the Noisy Grape. When it's got a nice label, it's definitely been our biggest seller this season. That's basically a Chenin with a touch of Shiraz, so I guess it is seasonal. But I think something that is more unique is probably our sparkling Shiraz. I'll let my old boy talk to you about that, but that's certainly something that is more unique. And when we do have stock, we sell out of that pretty quickly. And we've got a big order going off to Andy and Clint next week, which we're really excited about. I think it'll be interesting to see how it does in the States. You're welcome.
John, Shiraz, what on earth are you thinking?
Look, it's Dan. We don't have the kit or the equipment to make it. It would cost a fortune. Jeff Beer makes it for me from Valera. He was at Bishop's, I was at Rondebosch, and he's doing me a huge favor because we always thrashed him at rugby. So he's doing me a huge favor, and we make about 3,000 bottles a year. And it's been incredibly popular. MCC, so it's not carbonated or anything like that. I stand under correction. I think the only people doing it in South Africa is an MCC. I'm sure there are other people who are wanting to do it, and I think it's a great idea. And please, if you want to do it, assist us and talk to us because we need to get this going in South Africa. So look, it's been fun. It's a great wine. I love it. Just because the expectation is when it goes pop, you expect it to be white, and it's not. It's red.
I haven't tried it yet. I have tried some sparkling Shiraz from Dari and Durbanville. I'm not sure if it's method champenoise or not, but
it could be. It could well be, Dan. I don't. Of course, it could be. I don't claim to be the only person, but we got it from Australia. We took the concept from Australia, and I thought it could work in this country.
Well, it's always good, John, to take stuff from lesser nations and upgrade, which is exactly what you've done. So, I will look for that.
So much bigger than the
and everything else, really. Last quick visit down to Mont Rochelle and Sir Richard's best mate. We tried the Chardonnay. There's a whole pile of wine you sent up to me, Dustin. What's top of the list of the ones there I should be trying first?
Dan, I think you should be looking at the Miko Red 2012. So, our Mikos are made in a style that's more ageable. So it's a 2012 vintage. It was bottled in 2014. So, it's got 7 years bottle age on it. It's a Syrah Cab Merlot. It's a dash of Merlot. But the Syrah comes from right up in the top of the mountain in these granitic, in this decomposed granite soil. So very small structured. So the wines are quite very structured and big, bold style, but very ageable. So, paying homage to, as you alluded to earlier, Miko Rawateri. Try the Miko.
I will certainly do exactly that. That's on my list. Let's wrap up and go back to Elephant Corner HQ, which is a sprawling 11-story building in the heart of North Carolina. Guys, you've made a big investment, a big vote of faith in South African wine, and as an industry, I know we're very grateful to see that because it's spreading the South African wine gospel. I'm not going to ask you if you're feeling positive about South African wine because I think I know the answer to that. But if people are watching this, they're also wine producers, they're winemakers, they're looking to try and spread their wings and move into an American market. What would the advice be from the pair of you to try and make that happen?
You mean in terms of us particularly?
No, I think just generally. If you're looking to America,
I think obviously there's resources such as WOSA. Over here, Jim Clark does a great job for Wines of South Africa, and he would be the natural resource to reach out to. I think to pick his brains a little bit to see what area you would want to branch out into. In terms of ourselves, just to answer that question, we are looking to expand our portfolio a little bit more. We're very careful about what we select and what I feel would work in our market, and then grow our relationships. So there's room to work with us, but I think countrywide here, there's definitely opportunity there. As I say, reach out to Jim, I think, was the first port of call.
He's a good man. We've been lucky enough to have him on. Dan really likes wine. And that's an appropriate note on which to bring to an end what's been a terrific show, kick-started by the fabulous Schalk Bezuidenhout and ended up with the wonderful story of South African wine finding its way to North Carolina and being celebrated across America. Ronaldo, if you just want to bring everybody up on screen for me there we go. Guys, thank you all so much. Andy, Clint in particular. Andy, thanks for reaching out, and guys, best of luck with the project. I think you're off to a roaring start, but also know it's only going to get bigger and better, and we'll be watching the journey very closely with excitement. Wynand, lovely to have somebody from your company who wears t-shirts the right size for them as opposed to puffs, which are all sizes small. But thank you too for introducing us to Schalk Bezuidenhout wine as well as your own. Dustin, lovely to be in touch with Mont Rochelle. I owe you guys a visit. I look forward to getting out of France again soon. And to Team Nell, to the good-looking young one, and to his son, guys, thank you. And best of luck mopping up, because I know you've had a tough stretch. But thank you all. Good luck, and really appreciate it.
Thank you, Dan.
Cheers, guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Guys. So there we go. Dan really likes wine for tonight. What a show. Some terrific people, some fabulous wine and some great stories. And in particular, seeing South African wine spread its wings and find a home in North Carolina, where Clint and Andy are doing such a terrific job and clearly both so passionate about South African wine. Thanks to Schalk Bezuidenhout, feeling good, feeling positive. Another wonderful South African wine story. Before we wrap up, a reminder, If you're not already a member of the Pick and Pay Wine Club, well, you should be. It is absolutely free of charge to join. You simply send your smart shopper number by text to 36775. That gets you 3 times the smart shopper points on every single bottle of wine that you buy. It also gets you great deals on a particular case of wine, on a selection of different wines each month. You get a 20% discount, and there's a deal on a Magnum as well, plus some cool events and competitions, including a great competition this month involving Haut Cabrières. And we're hoping to have Takwan and his team on the show in the next couple of weeks. Coming up next week on Monday, look out for Ati from Opstal with some of his wonderful, wonderful wine from Rawsonville. So we'll be talking to him. And next Thursday, I'm live from Element House, hosting the launch of The Element, the brand new Erica Obermeyer produced blend that really is something quite special. Manny and Way from Element House joining me on that one as well, plus a couple of guest stars from the media, including Melu Lambert, Christian Eads, and Steve Steinfeld. Also look out this week, currently on our different platforms. I eat at Seba, a pop-up restaurant of Seba Mtungana at the Table Bay in Cape Town, but more importantly, try some wine from a selection of estates and pair it up with Seba's terrific food, and more cool content of a similar vibe coming up. And in 2 weeks' time, we're live from Plaisir de Meul as the Jordan family, Michael and Rose, take ownership of their new property. We'll be at that one as well. Also, at the end of the month, something very special coming up with a brand new Cabernet Sauvignon from Boschendel. We're live from there as well, so lots of travel over the next few weeks. For now, though, keep enjoying the wine. Best of luck to our good friends in America, Clint and Andy, who are doing such a terrific job. And thank you to Mont Rochelle, to Camberley, to the Kleine Wijn Koöp, and to Schalk Bezuidenhout for being part of this evening show. Have a great night. Keep drinking and supporting South African wine. Keep watching Dan Really Likes Wine. We'll see you again soon. Cheers.